Formula One, obviously, we have some brilliant combinations over the years. We've had, Lotus with Colin Chapman and Jim Clark and Graham Hill. The Ferrari Dream Team with, Schumacher, Ross Brawn, and Jean Todt. But I want to do my F1 Dream Team. Who, if I had all the picks just throughout from 1950 to the current year 2022, who would I pick as for my F1 dream team? This could be, this would be any regulations I want, just like, or throughout the year period of F1. Just who would I have in my F1 dream team? So obviously, there's a couple of things. This obviously, you've got a designer, obviously, a team principal because you do need one of them, an engine, a number one driver, and number two driver is the five that I have gone for. So, where should we start? I think we'll get the most relevant one out of the way, which is the engine. No real reason. Actually, no, there is a reason for this. Ferrari, because I'm a raging Ferrari fan simp. Um, I can't believe I just called myself a simp on camera. But anyway, I have no other real reason for choosing an engine for other than again, this could be like any regulation whatsoever. But I chose Ferrari. Part of me did want to choose BMW because they do have quite a good track record with their engines. Apart from in the 1980s where they kept on blowing up. No way, maybe that was Renault, but they did. But the turbo engines in the 80s did have a habit of blowing up. Part of me did want to choose BMW. But I think Ferrari, obviously, they've been in F1 the longest, haven't had the better, they haven't had a spotless track record of engines. 2014 and stuff, stuff like that. It's a bit of hair on my camera. So yeah, that is my reasoning for Ferrari. They've been here since 1950, not the first race. But they have been here since 1950, so they definitely have the most experience of making an engine. Now, the designer. Now, obviously, you need a good designer to make a Formula One car. We've had people like, obviously, Adrian Newey is probably the most best example of currently. Obviously, he's made that 2022 Red Bull, which is just an amazing car. I think one of his I think one of his best cars he's ever made. And then obviously going back a little bit more, we've had John Barnard, who did some of Ferraris and some McLarens. Well, I've gone for, I think, an underrated pick for this one. I've gone with Gordon Murray. Why Gordon Murray? I do think this personally has something to do with the fact that I have been watched on F1 TV some of the documentaries I watched. I think it was Architects of F1 with which was dedicated to Gordon Murray, and I just thought, wow, this guy's just an absolutely incredible designer. He is, I think, probably if I say the fan car, that might jog a little bit of memory. He's the one who made the Brabham BT40. Oh my god, 46B. I hope it's 40 something, the 40 something B, with the fan on it, and he was able to argue that no, it's actually, if you actually look at it, it is actually primarily there to cool the engine. Yes, it does give us this absurd ground effect, but its primary use is to cool the engine. Therefore, it's perfectly legal. But that's not the only, car he's known for. I think the 74 Brabham, when obviously he had a little bit of ground effect there for the 74 car. And obviously he did Brabham for I think it was from 86 or 7, and then he left for McLaren, which the then again designed the most dominant, not the best, the most dominant Formula One car in the McLaren MP44. Now I know there's a little bit of discrepancy with who designed that car. But for me it was Gordon Murray. And obviously he was the one who thought about the two doing pit stops in the races as well. So he's I do think Gordon Murray is criminally underrated as a good designer, and also kind of running a team in a way as well. And that's why I've chosen him. I do think he's underrated. He made the fan car, and I think whatever regulations you were to give Gordon Murray, I'm sure he would make a top a championship contending car, or at least at the very minimum a race winning car, at the very very least. Which is why I've chosen Gordon Murray. Adrian Newey comes in a very close second for me, but I chose Gordon Murray. Now, team principal. There is a lot to choose from here. Like most, currently we have people like Christian Horner. I know I'm probably going to get a load of shit from that, but I don't fucking care. Obviously Toto Wolff, Mattia Bonotto. I'm just joking with that one. And then going further back, people like Ross Brawn and John Todd and who else? Ken Tyrrell. Who else is there off the top of my head? Probably one of the most notable ones. I can't really think of anyone else. But the one I've gone for is Colin Chapman. Now, I don't know if it's cheating or not, but I think Colin Chapman was both a team principal and a designer. So obviously he can have a little bit of input in the design with Gordon Murray, and I think that's probably one of the most greatest pairings that never happened. It could have happened. If you go watch the Architects of F1 and Gordon Murray, that actually could have happened. But Colin Chapman, he is obviously he is one to implement team orders. He knew when to do it. He he was very firm in his thinking, and for anyone who's worked with Colin Chapman has said he was brilliant. I don't really have much more to say. I think it would just be a good, solid team principal. He would, know what you'd know, and get drivers to do when to push, when to let drivers let through, and obviously you had a massive celebration. You'd probably have a celebration as well, and as I already mentioned, with him and Gordon Murray, I am sure they would bounce ideas off each other. Is that cheating? I don't know, but I separated the two, so I don't really care. It's my list, it's my opinion, and I can do whatever I want because it's my channel. Now, on to, I'd say probably the juiciest part of this video. Who would I have as the drivers? So we've got a number one driver and a number two driver. Now, my number one driver, this one was really, 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 really hard. I could have had Max Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton, Alain Prost, Senna, Schumacher, Jim Clark, Graham Hill, just all these just absolutely legendary names. And I was really tempted for Prost because he's like my third favorite driver of all time. He's in my top 10 greatest drivers of all time as well, which is a video I probably will do this week since I'm off work this week. But I have gone with Niki Lauda. Why have I gone with Niki Lauda? Development feedback. I think he's one of the strongest for that. Obviously, we have the whole, when he first joined Ferrari, said the car's shit. It's not shit. You can't call it shit. Why not? Because it's a Ferrari. And then obviously the back and forth with Enzo, and then Enzo saying, right, if you say this car can go so much faster, but if it doesn't go so much faster, you're fired. And then Niki proved him wrong. And then I think probably the most impressive Lauda, he won in two very distinct eras of Formula One. He got the championship in like the mid 70s in 75 and 77, where ground effect and that was starting to come into play. And even then, he was still quite competitive in the Brabham. And then we get into 84 with the first turbo in the, well, technically the only turbo era of F1 since the current ones are hybrids. And then obviously he won in 84. So I think Lauda is one of the front runners if you want a number one driver with winning in two such distinct eras, and is able to give good feedback, and also was probably he obviously convinced John Barnard. I've been watching a lot of F1 documentaries recently. He convinced John Barnard to develop or get a turbo engine for 83 or 84. I can't remember which one, but he's obviously got a very, very big presence, and people listen to him, and obviously he gets results as well. So I think Niki Lauda is quite an obvious pick for me personally. Now, a number two driver, for me, this was very, very, very. I thought it was a lot harder than number one, because I could have gone all out and had a superstar lineup of, I don't know, like like Lauda and Senna, or Niki and Schumacher and Lauda, just any other like top tier driver. But I didn't want to do that, because if I want to create my own dream team, I would just want, a number one driver who's there to get the results, and then a number two driver who is also up there and can back up the driver, and also pick up the pieces if something happens to my first driver. So that did narrow it down quite a bit. Obviously, we have people like Rubens Barrichello, Sergio Perez, Valtteri Bottas, maybe someone like Graham Hill, Sterling Moss, but maybe Carlos Reutemann as well. But when going through these, there was one that kept on cropping up, and in my mind, since I did a couple months ago rewatch the 1970s season reviews, which are on F1 TV, and you can also find them on the internet. Who said that? But I've chosen Ronnie Peterson. Very, very quick driver. One of the quickest drivers. One of the most talented drivers. That unfortunately was taken too soon from us. But I think that we've seen in 78, when he was teammates with Mario Andretti, he would listen to team orders. He would listen to what Colin would have to say. And again, bloody quick driver. And I think him and Niki if that actually did happen, what happened, I think that would be one of the most unstoppable driver pairings in F1, because obviously we have Lauda, who can, number one driver, goes out there, bangs it out, and is just obviously, again, he won two distinct eras of F1. Just go out there and bang in the results. If something happened to him, I am sure Peterson would be there to pick up the pieces. If Lauda was, Lauda in first place, Peterson in second, something happens to Lauda, Peterson would be there. And I'm sure he would listen to team orders as well. I think that was shown in 78 when, maybe Peterson could have got him a championship. But no, he, saw Mario as the better driver, not the Nintendo character, the driver. He saw, Andretti as the better driver. And would I give these people equal pairing, give these drivers equal status at the start? Yeah, why not? I'm sure Chapman probably would as well. And then, season goes on, one of them, is backing up the other driver, no matter which way it goes. So, for a recap, my designer would be Gordon Murray, my team principal, Colin Chapman, and then engine, Ferrari, probably the most irrelevant thing on this list, and then number one driver, Niki Lauda, and then my second driver would be Ronnie Peterson. That is going to be it for this video. if you enjoyed this video and you actually thought, Brightweiser, your picks are absolutely horrible, or no, I will just change or say, I'll actually change this bit or this bit, I will change this one. Feel free to leave a comment. That is why they are there. So feel free to do that. And if you enjoyed this video, feel free to like it. If you liked this video, feel free to check out some of my other content. And if you like my other content on this channel, feel free to colour in, make that subscribe button turn from red to grey. It'd be greatly appreciated. And until next time, enjoy the rest of your day, and I shall see you in the next video.